Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome to another episode of Kal's Corner radio show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, folks, today is the anniversary of President John F. Kennedy's murder. He was killed on November 22nd, 1963. And probably, if I understand my demographics correctly, and this is not something unique to this network, nor this show, nor the X-Zone itself. I think it's worldwide. Most of the people, if they listen to this show or they read about John F. Kennedy, they're lucky if they really know who he is or was. They may have heard the name. They're younger people. They were not alive back then. They were not born when Kennedy was killed. They didn't know what it was like to have the impact on their life because they weren't alive. But what they were is they were born into a world that had grown up and accustomed to being accepted, that there was this idea that there was this conspiracy to murder President Kennedy. Now, what I'm going to share with you is something that is frightening, but it's true. If you look at what Americans believe in, okay, it is scary. And we're supposed to be the most educated country, theoretically, on the planet, although from our academic achievements, you'd never know that if you look at college scores. Having been to 27 countries myself, most Americans speak one language, okay? They will only at one point speak more than one language once there's enough immigrants to change that dynamic. But Americans themselves don't learn foreign languages. Most Americans don't even have passports. I'm one of the minority who do. But if you look at the numbers, it's scary. There's 88 million people, folks, who believe that 9/11 was a conspiracy. 88 million people, and they vote. The biggest conspiracy of all time that most Americans believe in this last 100 years is the JFK conspiracy. 160 million people believe it. 66 million, that's 100 million less, little roughly, believe in Roswell. 22 million people believe that the moon landings were faked. 88 million people believe in the Illuminati, like there's some group controlling everything. That's roughly equal to the number of people who believe that 9/11 was a conspiracy. They're not the same people. This is probably one of the most frightening things about all of these tens of millions of people here. If you add up hundreds of millions, whatever, they're not always the same people. And then vaccines causing autism. As much as 63 million people believe this stupidity. Now let's go back to Kennedy. The numbers, again, are scary. In my studies of this case, this assassination, which took me 16 years before it was solved, and I'll get to that in this show, you can see that in 1963, after the assassination took place, 53% of Americans believed there was something fishy, a conspiracy. More than one gunman had done it. It wasn't just Oswald. By 1966, this is about 2 years after the Warren Commission report was out, 50% believed it was only Oswald. But by 1976, 81% of Americans said, nope, there must have been a conspiracy. In 1983, that number dropped from 81 to 74%. In 1992, it jumped up to 78%. In 1994, it dropped down to 75%. In 2001, it jumped up to 81%. And in 2003, it dropped down to 75%. And in 2013, which is the last study that I know of that I've bothered tracking, this was done by the Gallup organization. And in fact, the statistics I've given you are all from Gallup. Gallup is a top leading polling organization, as we all know. The last time they bothered asking people about this question, was there a conspiracy to murder Kennedy? In 2013, which again was 6 years ago, 61% said yes. So still today, that number is about true. There's no evidence it has gone up significantly nor down. But again, that is the majority of Americans, but that's better than the 81% that was in 2001. So why is it then that most Americans, most people, and most Europeans I've talked to over the years, they also believe something weird happened. Why do they think this? Well, there's a main reason here. There's a couple of key factors. One is the U.S. government. Let's be honest, they lied. They not only lied, they lied to their own. And even the Warren Commission, they were not given the full facts. And you have to understand the unique dynamics here because it was really bizarre. Here you have the President of the United States. He is murdered, shot by Oswald. But they don't know it's only Oswald yet. They're investigating. The problem is the president's brother, Robert Kennedy, is the Attorney General. And then he takes charge, essentially, of the investigation. But Robert Kennedy and his brother have a dirty secret. Actually, many of them. They were not saints. But yes, they were American heroes. Appreciate the irony. They had a secret deal with the mafia to murder Fidel Castro. And they didn't want the world to know about that. And Robert Kennedy did fear, he was right to think this way, that maybe there was a blowback factor here. Because Castro knew that the Kennedys were trying to kill him. They tried many times, many different ways. Everything from seashells that would be planted on the coast that would explode, to trying to make his beard fall out to take away his manhood. They tried all kinds of stupid, weird things. But they thought maybe Castro or the Russians retaliated because Oswald was a Marxist. He had defected to Russia. Again, you couldn't make this up if you were a Hollywood script writer. There were all the bizarre elements in here, an elixir, a mix of elements that you could look at this many different ways, and the glass was either half full or half empty. So the Kennedys, as in Robert Kennedy, covered up the fact that they had this arrangement. They worked with the CIA, but in a compartmentalized fashion, because the CIA had its own dirty secrets. So the Warren Commission was never given the full story. And they never had the proof. They couldn't prove it forensically, as in something that everybody could really understand and see and say, yes, it's true, I believe it, I understand it. They didn't have any such moment where they could say, yep, yes, it was only Oswald. There was this bullet that went through both of them, as incredible as it sounds, and we'll get to that, throughout the show here. Again, they couldn't prove it, so people were skeptical. You can't blame them. And it wasn't until the 1970s when the conspiracy beliefs really took off, when people saw the Zapruder film for the first time, when they saw Kennedy getting shot. They saw him fall backwards. And everybody knows that when you shoot somebody, they always fall backwards, right? Well, no, they don't. That's not true. And people will say, well, no, I know better. And I've heard this from people, folks. It's comical. It's laughable. So I'll say, have you ever seen anybody shot? No. Okay, so why do you think people always fall backwards when they're shot? Well, I've seen it in movies. Okay. Well, that is a showstopper right there, because movies don't use real bullets. They use blanks. Oswald used real bullets. Now, people don't always fall backwards when they shoot them. It depends on a lot of different factors. In the case of Kennedy, the bullet entered from behind the head, around the occipital region of the skull. It exited from the right side of the skull, near the front, and that jet wash, if you will, of brain matter that's spewed out, that's visible on frame 313 of the Zapruder film. It's very graphic. The matter splats up, and his head shoots back because it's being pushed back by what is called the jet effect. And this is basic physics 101. And if you don't believe me, there's a simple experiment you can do. It's been done countless times, but it's ignored by people who promote this conspiracy stuff. Just take a watermelon, good size, take one the size of a human head or as big as you want, doesn't matter, and put it on something and shoot it and watch which way it flies or moves off in some direction after one side of it explodes, because of the force of the impact and exit force of the bullet. Kennedy's head was no different. But people watch too many James Bond movies, they watch Hollywood, they think that people always fly backwards, and a tiny gun, remember the old Cannon TV series, had a .38 revolver, he'd shoot it and the guy would go flying back 10 feet and through a window. It doesn't work that way. And then you had the government lies. You can't blame people for being angry over that. But then you had something to happen that really took the Kennedy conspiracy thing to a level that is outright shameful and should never have happened. Hollywood and the mass media, the liberal media, became pro-conspiracy types. And that's when everything went even further left. Now, you must remember again that the Warren Commission, they couldn't prove the single bullet theory. They didn't have, let's call it a space shuttle Challenger explosion O-ring moment. What I mean is, if you remember when the space shuttle exploded, the Challenger, the scientist who basically told the world how it happened, he took a rubber ring and he put it in some cold liquid and it was brittle. He said that's what happened. The gaskets got brittle. They didn't contain the seal. The rocket exploded. Everyone understood it. The Warren Commission never broke down the single bullet theory that way, so it looked ridiculous. They couldn't prove it, but it was later proven, and I will prove that it was later proven, and that it is beyond dispute, and that's why it is comical to even pretend nowadays that there is even a possibility that it was anybody else other than Oswald who did kill Kennedy. We'll be back after the break.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Shamanic healing is the key to personal empowerment. Why? All four levels of our being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, must be addressed for us to enjoy balanced, healthy, abundant lives. Yet there are few provisions for spiritual or energetic healing. Shamanism, found at the root of all cultures, is a very effective spiritual healing modality. To find quality shamanic healing you can trust, regardless of where you live, look no further than Find Your Path Home Long-Distance Shamanic Healing Program. All Path Home long-distance healing practitioners have been trained and certified through Path Home Shamanic Art School. Change your life. Live abundantly. Schedule a long-distance shamanic healing session with Gwilda Wiyaka or one of her quality practitioners today at findyourpathhome.com.
Welcome back to our special anniversary episode that breaks down and tells you and proves how President Kennedy was murdered on November 22nd, 1963. This is the anniversary of that tragic event. And what we have today is about 60%, 61% or so of Americans believe wrongly that there was a conspiracy to kill Kennedy and that someone else, including Oswald, or not including Oswald, but who knows, anybody but only Oswald killed Kennedy. And what we will do by the end of this show is prove to you that it was only Oswald. And it's not that this is some new revelation that I'm sharing with you. No, this was solved actually in the late 1980s, and I can prove it. And I have to really just shake my head about the continued nonsense that is out there about the JFK conspiracy. And of course, it's, perpetuated by the lamestream media, in addition to the nonsense on the internet, which that is to be expected. But shame on mainstream media when they promote this stuff. It's false history. It's fake news. Let me prove it. Now, before we get to the facts, real quickly, there's a lot of shows, especially this week and today on the anniversary, talking about Kennedy's murder. This is one of them. You can say, well, what's the difference between my opinion versus, say, anybody else's? Without naming any names, I will tell you that my view of this case, my history with it goes back decades, and nobody else has the background I do or the pedigree on it that I do. And let me prove it. I went to a high school called John F. Kennedy. It was in Fremont, California. I attended it from 1976 to 1980. I actually finished high school in 3 years as a so-called prodigy student, took 7 foreign languages, etc. But I decided to stay a 4th year so I could graduate with people I knew, hello, my friends, rather than strangers. So I had a free year, even though I kept taking classes and so on. The school let me take as many classes as I wanted, and so on. So in my freshman year, I had an English teacher named Bill Thomas, and I told him I don't want to reread the same books I've read over and over in other schools because I had more advanced classes than what you teach here. No offense, I'm at a different school now. So I'll tell you what, let me pick the books that I want to read. I'll read 10 times as many as you want me to read of Bless the Beasts and Children, which I've read 3 times. I don't want to read it again. And I'll write a book report on each of them. And he's like, okay, fine. So what happened is the issue of Kennedy's assassination came up because the House Select Committee on Assassinations, the government was re-looking into the issue. And I didn't really follow it. And so I thought, okay, I'll get this little book on it. There was a book called 6 Seconds in Dallas by Josiah Thompson. It was a bestseller. And it had in the book frames from the Zapruder film that were drawn by an artist. They were police sketch realistic because there was a copyright issue. So to get around the fact that they didn't have the legal rights to reproduce frames of the Zapruder film, they had an artist draw accurate sketches of each frame so that the American people for the first time could see what was in that film, because of course they didn't watch the whole film until it was later shown on ABC News, as I recall, in the 1970s. So what happened was I started asking my teachers, who killed Kennedy? Well, I asked one teacher, and he told me that Oswald had done it. I asked another teacher, he told me that CIA did it. I asked another teacher, he told me the Mafia did it, working with possibly Johnson. No matter who I asked, I got different answers. What bothered me is that nobody could definitively point to anything. And since I'm a why of the why type person, and here I am already studying UFOs and stuff like that, it bothered me. So what happened is we found a photo that was taken by a woman named Mary Mormon. And when we looked at the photo, it showed something on the grassy knoll above the fence there, which we couldn't explain. We didn't know what it was. So I talked to Bill Spalding of Ground Saucer Watch. I was working with him to analyze UFO photos. Later, I would write a column with him, a UFO photo file for Saga UFO Report. I had taken it over from Hayden Hughes. He worked with me on the Billy Meyer photos, the first computer enhancements of them, when we found the string above the famous photos, the Mount Orutai photos, where the object is sitting above the beautiful hill there, Mount Orutai. It's actually on a string, of course, because it's a small model. The computers found that, and when I went to Switzerland many years later, undercover, posing as Steve Thomas, when I got to see the unedited Meyer photos, as I later published in my book, because it was true, I got copies of them. They were given by Billy Meyer himself to the Jakob family. The strings were very visible. They weren't later airbrushed or whitened out. So, boom, busted. Anyway, back to Kennedy. It bothered me that there was this stuff about a conspiracy. So I worked with a friend of mine. We wrote a 200-page, I think it was 212-page report for my teacher on this, typed it all up. And he was, of course, blown away. And this was not my first 200-plus page report. I'd done a previous one in 8th grade by myself called UFOs, the Massive UFO Evidence, and I'd included the Hill case in there, only to, a few months later, find the Atterberg star map data that led me to later conclude that Marjorie Fish was wrong. Friedman knew this, went to his grave, unfortunately, pushing that myth. We've talked about it in other shows. Anyway, it's amazing how in my personal life, a lot of this stuff has been interconnected because some of the same people are involved in different subjects, and here's Kennedy stuff, UFO stuff, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, after this report, we had done this computer enhancement of the Mormon photo. And there was something back there that didn't make sense. And so what happened is word leaked out about this, and the San Jose Mercury News ran a newspaper article on the research. And that apparently upset somebody in Washington, D.C. with the House Select Committee on Assassinations, because we were telling them that there was a figure in that photo that we couldn't account for, that, people had reported a shot on the knoll, and, could this be an image of that person? Because the photo was taken shortly after the fatal headshot. And so what happened is they were jolted enough by it, or interested enough, whatever you want to call it. They weren't exactly friendly. What happened one day is I'm in school. This article has been in the paper. There's no internet, okay? And this is like 2 or 3 days later or something. And then all of a sudden the intercom goes off in the school, and it says, Kal Korff, please come to the principal's office immediately. Now in our school, when you were called to the principal's office, it was either to tell you you were suspended, or it wasn't good news. something unexpected. So I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? I don't do anything wrong. Okay, I'm actually the most famous person in the school, take it or leave it. I'm lecturing, I'm on TV, I'm in the papers, all this other stuff. And now I got to go to the principal's office. For some reason, I just felt like, what the hell? So I go down there, and I go into the principal's office, and they said, there's a phone call for you. Okay, so I pick up the phone, and it's a guy with the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and he's not happy that we have a problem with this photo. And he's like, I want you to send this to us immediately, or I can subpoena it. It's your choice. And I'm thinking, I don't even know what a subpoena was. I'm a freshman in high school. I'm not really clear on that stuff. I don't really know about it. So I said, yeah, I'll send it to you, no problem. So he gave me the address. We sent it, registered, all that other happy crap. And he said he'd get back to us in about a month. Well, about 6 weeks go by, and we hear nothing. And I call a few times. And I actually called from the school number one time. The school actually let me use, on more than one occasion, I'll just limit it to that disclosure, the phone, because I was publicity for the school. And when they let me promote the lectures and all that stuff I was doing, because I gave the money from my lectures, even with Stanton Friedman that I did, this was all covered in the newspaper articles. Some of them were published. I finally released them. They were never on the internet, didn't exist back then. And I would give my share of the money to my class, as a fundraiser. They were selling light bulbs and doing car washes. I was doing lectures and giving money to them. Okay. Anyway, back to Kennedy. They didn't return our stuff. And they said, well, I finally reached them at the House Committee. And he says, Mr. Korff, that's not anything on the photo. It's just a scratch. And I'm like, it's not a scratch, you moron. Anyway, so I said, that's it. Just send it back to me. Fine. Have a good day. So they send it back. And we get the photos, and they were 8x10s. We had sent blow-ups to the same exact images we had put under the digital computer. And it turns out that there was a scratch. He was right. Only it wasn't on the photo. It was outside the frame, hello, and it wasn't there when we sent it. And I'm thinking, what is this guy smoking? What was he looking at? So at that point, I'm mad because, this was just pure BS. And then I read that the House Committee concludes that there was a conspiracy, likely a conspiracy, that there was another person on the knoll that fired a pistol at Kennedy but missed, go figure that one, and that it was probably the mafia who did it. Have a nice day. And I'm like, okay, this is not, all right, fine. So at this point, I'm really interested in the Kennedy assassination. I figured this is ridiculous. We can't even tell who killed our own president. This is not believable. It's not credible. Something stinks. So what I did is I decided that I would make a database. I made it in FileMaker, okay? I used FileMaker Pro, used it for decades. I even worked at Claris and Apple. Part of some of the stuff I did there is in the program FileMaker from years back. Matter of record. Anyway, I made a database and I put the contents in of all the top selling Kennedy books. Back then there were 65 that accounted for about 90% of the public's knowledge on this, the overwhelming majority of which were conspiracies. And the biggest pattern I found that was leaping out in the database was circular references. And when you chased them down, it turns out that the original source never said it. It never happened. Houston, we have a problem. We'll come back after this break.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. This, again, is a special episode that solves Kennedy's assassination. I am giving you a first-hand account that is true from history. This is well documented. That's why, again, I have to just shake my head at a lot of the stuff going on out there that I read and see, because it just isn't true. And I'm the only person who was there for this particular series of events that I'm now sharing with you. And again, a lot of this has been out there for many years, and I'll explain why even CNN covered it later. I'll come back to that. So when I started the database project, it was years, of course, later. It took 16 years to study all the Kennedy data. I put in the Warren Commission files. I put in every photo I could find. Everything that I could think of that was relevant, I put it all in a database, started crunching the data. And one of the main reasons I did it is because that allowed me to search things, more clear. I ended up initially putting so many bookmarks in books that there were more bookmarks than pages, and it became too much. And since I was a multimedia hypercard nut, I was on the hypercard team. Again, it's all in press articles that are out there. They covered my multimedia work, talked about me starting at Lawrence Livermore Lab with KMI. Sorry, Bob Lazar. We'll come back to you in another episode. Anyway, all this happened. And then we started doing a 3D reconstruction of the Zapruder film. And what happened in the late 1980s is that the exact moment that the single bullet, yes, it was just one bullet, folks, I'm going to prove it, that went through both Kennedy and Connolly was actually captured on the Zapruder film, and it was missed by everybody. I'm the person who discovered it. It's a matter of record. It got me on a special 30th anniversary show of Larry King Live. And on that show, I debated Gayton Fonzie, who was the chief investigator, the top head honcho, who was the chief investigator of the House Select Committee on Assassinations. We did this show on November 22nd, 1993. That date is not a coincidence. Now, you can go back and get this episode. Unfortunately, CNN sells it with a best of Larry King, and I'm with Hillary Clinton. But anyway, that aside, you can buy it. Just check Amazon.com. It's a matter of record. You can't take it out of there. And Larry King cites my study. CNN checked it. This is back in the days when CNN actually did great investigative journalism, folks. So all this is a matter of record. And I kicked his ass in the debate. It was a live debate around the world, and nobody called in for him. And I was advocating the least popular position, that Oswald acted alone. And I showed on the show, Larry's show, the actual frames from the Zapruder film where you could see the lapel from Governor Connolly's suit that flipped up as the bullet exited below his right nipple and then further injured him. Let me break that down. Now, in the Josiah Thompson book, 6 Seconds in Dallas, look at the title, 6 Seconds. The myth, the stupid myth that started this, let's call it step one, is that 3 shots were fired in 6 seconds. Who says? Well, there's really no facts to back that up. In fact, I was able to show in my study that it was closer to 9 seconds. And you must remember that the first shot of 3 is ready to go. It's in the chamber. You just got to pull the trigger. So you got to cock the bolt back 2 more times in 9 seconds. You can do it. It's not hard, folks. And you must remember that Kennedy was in a straight line of fire. That's a perfect way to kill somebody with a rifle because they're not ducking, darting around. They're in a straight line of sight. You just need to raise the elevation of the barrel as the target moves away from you. If Oswald had fired as the limousine came towards him, he would have been aiming towards the ground, moving towards the ground. That's not the way Marines are trained. Use your common sense, folks. Now, let's prove it was more than 6 seconds. The Warren Commission is the one who started the 6-second stupidity. It caused people like Josiah Thompson to say, wait a minute, it doesn't add up, and he was right. But here's where the Warren Commission blew it. The Warren Commission made the assumption that nobody would fire at the president until after he cleared the view from the tree that was blocking the sniper's window on the 6th floor window of the Texas School Book Depository. This is where the shooter was. This is where Oswald was. This is where they later found the rifle, the snipers purged the ejected shells, so on. Again, they said, well, he didn't fire until after the president cleared the view of the branches of the tree. Logical assumption, but what matters is what the shooter thought, not what the Warren Commission thinks. What matters is what Oswald thought at that moment. Well, it turns out that he didn't wait. He actually fired before the president was clear in view. And we know that for a couple of reasons now. When you look at the eyewitness testimony and you look at the Zapruder film itself, you will see a small girl that's running along the left side behind Kennedy's limo. That little girl suddenly stops and turns around and looks back up towards the 6th floor depository window. The reason she stops is because she heard a shot. And when you look at the timing of when she stops at frames 160 to 161 of the Zapruder film. Kennedy's headshot that killed him, where his head explodes, at frame 313. Do the math, folks, at 18.3 frames per second, which is the frame rate of the camera Zapruder used, and you got an event that's closer to 9 seconds, not 6. So we now know that the first shot, which was ready to go, you squeeze the trigger, went ahead and happened earlier than the Warren Commission wrongly assumed. But it gets better, folks. Multiple witnesses reported that the first shot sounded a bit weird, like kind of a twang with it. They saw a spark that hit the ground because what happened is the bullet actually hit a twig in the tree. And the bullet went off course. It hit the ground, separated from its jacket. It skipped down a few hundred meters and hit a bystander named James Tague, hit the curb, went up and nicked him in the cheek and caused it to bleed. The FBI removed that piece of the curb. They did a metallurgy analysis of it, found that the bullet metal came from the same bullet of Oswald's rifle. Tague had his little wound. That was the first shot. It missed entirely because Oswald didn't wait for the first shot to take place after he cleared the tree. Remember, he's got to aim up. So he aimed up into the tree, and Kennedy hadn't quite cleared it yet. So he was able to compensate with the second shot. That was his better shot as he raised up higher. And that's why the second shot not only hit Kennedy, it hit him, high in the back. Only this time, some very interesting physics kick in, which a lot of people don't understand until it's explained to them properly. And the mainstream media and the conspiracy nuts don't do this because they've got their various excuses and agendas. And some of them, I'm sorry to say, are just ignorant of basic science. I'm sorry. Let's start with the second shot now. We've explained the first and the timing of when the first shot went off. The second shot, now he hits Kennedy in the back, but it's high in the back. So the bullet exits in the front of Kennedy through his throat, his trapezius muscles. It doesn't hit bone, but now Kennedy, around the area of his windpipe, the bullet escapes out, and that's why in the Zapruder film you see him grabbing towards his throat. He can't talk now. He's been shot through the throat. So the bullet exits from Kennedy's throat. And what happens is it slams into Governor Connolly, who is sitting in front of Kennedy, but slightly to the right. And he's turned back a little bit because he heard the first shot. He's not deaf. Only what happens is the bullet slams into Connolly's back, and it smashes sideways against his fifth rib, and it breaks it. And it exits below the right nipple. Believe it or not, it enters into his wrist, okay? And it shatters and breaks the bone, and then it goes into his leg, bottom first. But because it's gone through so much human flesh and bone in two bodies, its velocity has slowed down to the point where it is then recovered in the pants in the hospital, in the trouser leg of Connolly's pants. Conspiracy nuts will say the bullet was planted. No, it wasn't. The ballistic markings prove, and the way it's deformed and it's flattened on one side, matching the missing 5 inches of his rib that were knocked out. Come on, folks. And the ultimate proof that it was tumbled. How did the bullet tumble? Because it exited out of Kennedy's throat. If it had been a straight shot or a different shooter, there would have been a round entrance hole, very narrow, like there was in the back of Kennedy, because it had entered him first, exited out of the throat muscles, and then entered into Connolly, slammed in there, broke the fifth rib, etc. Now we're going to prove the moment that the second bullet hit Kennedy and Connolly, and we can see it on this Zapruder film now. I'll prove it. And what I'm going to do, just to be mean and non-conspiratorial, is I'm going to wait until the beginning of the next segment to break that down for you, and you can check it and prove that this is true. We'll be back.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hides' life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Okay, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Kal's Corner Radio and the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff. I'm your host. Once again, the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now we're going to solve Kennedy's murder and prove it was one shooter, Oswald, and that it was one bullet that went through both men. That's President Kennedy, Governor Connolly. It wasn't magic. We'll come back to that in a moment, and we'll prove that there was no fourth shot or no person on the grassy knoll firing to send Kennedy flying backwards. All right, how do we prove it? Well, since I'm the person who found the frames in the Zapruder film, where the lapel flips up, here's where you can find it, folks. Go online, look at a clear copy of the Zapruder film. Look at the section well, first of all, watch the whole thing, including looking for the girl who stops and looks back because she hears the first shot. Duh, hello. Then go to the second part where the limousine is emerging from behind the Stemmons Freeway sign. By that time that you see Kennedy emerging from there, he's already grabbing at his throat. It's because he's been shot. But what happened to Connolly? Well, on frames 223, 224, and 225, I promise you, you can actually see the right lapel of Connolly's suit flip up in basically 3 frames. And that's incredible because the speed of the film is 18.2 or 18.3 frames per second. So what caused that lapel to suddenly go up and down in a slight fraction of a second, captured on film for history? It's been there the whole time. The Warren Commission missed it. Well, that proves that it was one bullet going through both people. And I'll tell you why. Because the bullet slammed into Connolly. We know that. The entrance wound was bigger than the length of the bullet. It had tumbled. Kennedy's already grabbing his throat because it's already left. It slammed into Connolly. And it came out, you can trace it through the x-rays and the medical reports. It went out through below his right nipple, tore a big hole, shattered his 5th rib. okay, took out inches, and that caused the lapel to flip up. It's basic physics, folks. The suit is going to be affected when the bullet exits, hello, duh, and then it ends up in his wrist, and then exits the wrist and enters, rear end into the leg, but it's lost so much velocity. It's at paintball speed at that point, at about 400 feet per second, where it entered and left the rifle at anywhere from 18 to 2,200 feet per second. You can actually do the ballistic calculations and predict roughly how it's slowed down, because it would slow down each time it went through something. Again, it's basic physics, folks. But there it is. Those 3 frames, that's it. And that became my claim to fame in this. So we did a series of 3D reconstructive models of these parts of the Zapruder film. We were able to show that, yes, it really did happen this way. And that got me on Larry King. And we were getting ready to release, as I talked about on the Larry King Show, this thing where you could have a simulation, and it sounds kind of morbid, but you could shoot Kennedy with any conspiracy scenario you wanted, see how the body fell, and you were either right or wrong, and it used real physics. And then a company, which I had nothing to do with, decided to make a game out of this called JFK Reloaded. And what happened is the Kennedy family shut them down. And what happened is at Claris and Apple, where I worked at the time, and had become, famous there while I was working there for 2 things: the Billy Meyer undercover investigation, because I was on the Hypercard team when I secretly went to Billy Meyer's code and went over there to expose it as so-called Steve Thomas. Again, my boss was neighbors with Gary Kinder, just my luck, who had written Light Years. What are the odds, folks? Just my life. Again, I'm in the Bay Area. They'd recruited him from Sun Valley, Idaho. In my job interview with him, he's like, hey, I got a neighbor who's really into UFOs. His name is Gary Kinder. Have you ever heard of him? I'm like, oh, shit. So anyway, this all happened, and I became quite, it was quite interesting working there when this happened, the Meyer thing. And then, of course, the Kennedy thing. I had to come up to my boss and say, I got to have a couple of days off. I got to, go on Larry King and do this. And she's like, okay. Well, after the Larry King thing happened, I had people showing up at Apple and Claris wanting me to solve mysteries. I felt bad for one guy. He wanted me to help find his missing daughter. I told him he needs to work with the police instead. Others showed up telling me that there was a face on Mars. I told them, get out of here. So anyway, this all happened afterwards. And again, it's a matter of public record. And after we did this expose, and the Larry King thing happened, and I wrote some articles, and I've written again about it over the years off and on in newspapers, I pretty much walked away from the subject. And then what happened is 10 years later, I'm in Prague, and I call ABC TV, and I call CNN, and I asked CNN, Larry King, I said, what are you doing this time, 10 years later? And there was this young millennial type producer there, and he says, oh, we're having Governor Connolly, Connolly's wife, on there, and she's going to give the evidence there was a conspiracy. I said, what? I said, do you know what you guys said 10 years ago? He's like, no. And I'm like, well, I do. I was there. So I had to educate this producer at Larry King what had happened. And so I asked for the evidence, because maybe I'm wrong. Physics suddenly doesn't work anymore. Or somebody didn't give me the memo. So Nellie Connolly's disproof of my research said, were you there in the car that day? No. Okay, well, that proves me wrong, right, folks? Anyway, the whole thing is ridiculous. Nellie Connolly had the nerve to say that the real reason they shot Kennedy is they weren't aiming at him. They were aiming at her husband. Can you believe that? And then, after complaining there was a conspiracy, that they tried to really kill her husband, when he dies, and he's still got fragments from the bullet wounds in his wrist, she refuses to have them removed so that the issue can be settled once and for all, even though there was really never an issue to begin with. Again, games, folks. That's exactly what happened. It gets worse. Oliver Stone, I exposed him. Let me prove it. Do you remember the movie JFK? Because that really pushed my buttons. We used, ironically, his copy of this Zapruder film to solve the murder. It was ironic because we proved to him, he had a representative come down and meet me in L.A. when I had done, after I'd done Larry King, he had sent basically his one of his spies, so to speak, out there, because we were filming a special 2-series video cassette series called Final Verdict: JFK's Murder Solved, produced by Underground Video. You can still order it, I think, from Amazon Video. You can check it. Anyway, it's been out there for decades. It's a 2-part video of that speech I gave where I took everybody through all the stuff we did to solve the murder. And what happens is he's promoting, as well as Jim Mars, because he was one of the sources, and Jim Garrison, the so-called Lady in Red, Jean Hill, the main grassy knoll eyewitness. This is the woman who wore a bright red raincoat, stood next to Mary Moorman when she took the famous Polaroid photos that captured, what had happened, that I had analyzed in high school. So again, it comes full circle. And she says that she wrote a book called The Last Dissenting Witness. She says she went up the grassy knoll, saw the second gunman, saw red drops on the ground, turned out to be from a red snow cone. She said they went ahead and took her in a room and told her not to say anything. Government, she said, I could still feel the cold grip on my shoulder to this day. Complete fraud, folks. And it's easy to prove. And how you prove it is you just look at photos taken during that day. They totally prove that she is not even close to telling the truth. She wore a bright red raincoat. She wore a bright red raincoat, according to her, because in her own book, she says she was having an affair with an officer who's in the motorcade, in the Kennedy motorcade behind the Secret Service, B.J. Martin. He's on the left side. He actually got splattered by some brain matter when Kennedy was shot in the head. And what happened was she wanted to be seen in the photo. And the reason Mary Moorman was there, she wanted to capture her friend and BJ in the photo and Kennedy in the background. They were trying to do their version in 1963 of what today we call a selfie, okay? Only they had a Polaroid camera, so they could immediately, try to get the results or see it immediately. They couldn't take it again, of course. Kennedy would pass them by. And when you see her standing there and you look at photos taken by other people like Wilma Bond, you see her standing there and you see all kinds of other people running up on the knoll, but she's standing there doing nothing. In fact, she's too busy looking at the photos to see if they came out okay. It's right there, folks. So how can Oliver Stone say that she saw a second gunman and chased him when all the photos and the Zapruder film show that she wasn't even looking at Kennedy when his head was shot? Instead, she's looking at her boyfriend on the motorcycle. She's looking right at him. Mary Moorman's taking the photo. The Zapruder film captured her because Zapruder's on the other side of the street looking back in the other direction. And one of the stupidest things that Oliver Stone did, and again, it's conspiracy 101 nonsense, one of the greatest myths, is they've got this drawing of a top view of the Zapruder film that supposedly shows the positions of Kennedy and Connolly, and you see this arrow come out and how it zigzags, makes a right turn in midair and slams into Kennedy's back. And of course, bullets don't make right turns in midair. So of course, had to be a magic bullet. No, those positions of those bodies are wrong. You can't take a 3-dimensional event like a limousine, a person sitting in it, do a 2-dimensional drawing and get it accurate when it's just a line drawing. The representation is wrong. It's false. So folks, there was only one assassin, Oswald, and the KGB planted this myth among the French communist unions right after the assassination, knowing it would eventually get back to America, hopefully help to stabilize it. And to a huge degree, folks, they were successful. This is all real history, and real history matters, and I can prove all of this and a lot more. So I have no patience for anybody who says more than Oswald killed Kennedy. It's not true. We'll be back next week.